This is the world's deadliest ride in Planet Coaster. Or is it? 2 weeks ago, I stumbled across the G-Force world record in unmodded Planet Coaster, and I knew that I had to try to break it. I'm a college engineer, and I want to see if I can create the world's deadliest coaster. Alright, here we are in Planet Coaster, and let's see how many G-forces we can make a roller coaster have. To start out, we're just going to go to coasters. We're going to grab this one right here, the boomerang bolt. We're just going to bring it up nice and high. Let's see how many G's we can get this thing to have. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have a nice slope going down, and then put a loop. Maybe a second loop. Let's start the test. On the right side, you can see the speed, the lateral G-force, the forward G-force, and the vertical G-force. Let's see how high these G-forces get. Here we go. Okay, I saw 80s. I saw 120. It's just going to go backwards now, right? It's going to reach the top and then go back. Oh, yeah. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get any results. Now, in order for Planet Coaster to give you results, your coaster has to make a full loop and return to the station where it started. And this track wasn't quite getting me there. Let's go ahead and close that one. Let's try another one with a coaster that will actually let us do a full loop around. Autocomplete. When we run this one, it should be able to test the whole way through. Here we go. We're reaching some fairly high speeds, 175. That's pretty cool. Slowing down. All right, now the cable's gonna pull us up, so we can just edit the track and look at the results once it gets back. A maximum G-force of 107 for vertical G-force. All right, let's do one more. I think if we get some more speed and keep the loops tighter together, we will be able to gather even more G-force. Autocomplete. There we go. Let's go. Oh, we're going fast. Almost 200. Holy cow. I saw over 120 Gs. Let's look at the results. 122 Gs just from that. This is a good start. We have proof of concept right here. Now, we're going to need a more systematic method than this trial and error if we're going to get the number of Gs that I want to. And that's because I found this Reddit post the other week where there's a dude who we're just going to call Joey hit 924 Gs, and I need to beat him with my engineering skills. So that's exactly what we're doing today. We are going to be attempting to beat this record and create the world's deadliest coaster by G-force. The problem in Planet Coaster is that there's building limits. This is going to limit our potential energy, which is a formula based on how high you are, and that's going to limit our maximum speed, which is going to limit our G-force potential. Fortunately, you can increase these building limits. And I've actually found it will occasionally allow me to bring a coaster higher than the limit of the park. That's definitely way out of the boundaries of this park. So now that we have the upper limit of our roller coaster done, how fast is fast with 1,000 meters? 306 miles per hour. Now the other thing that we can do in this game is we can go to terrain. We can actually make holes in the ground. So I'm going to take this opportunity to see how low can we go. Can we do the limbo with the coaster? Time to add some more track onto the bottom here. Is terrain relative, so let's put it to sea level. If we're looking at sea level terrains, minus 124. Most people think that G-force is a weight pressing down on you, aka 1 G is one weight of the earth and 2 Gs are 2 weights of the earth. It's actually acceleration though. That's why you get pressed back into your seat in a car when you speed up quickly to get on the highway. The next thing we need to figure out is which coasters will go the fastest. The faster the coaster, the more acceleration in the turns we're going to be able to get because of the concepts of momentum and kinetic energy. The way we do this is going to be very simple. We're just going to have a bunch of coasters all at the same height, and we're going to see which one of them go down their track the fastest. I didn't know that in Planet Coaster, dudes yelled at you when you tried to place things on top of each other. Also, we will automatically be ruling out all of these coasters that cannot invert, as we will need them to invert for the G-forces. Theoretically, all three of these should have the same top speed when exiting the track, so we're just going to do a quick test with each of them. Take a look at the speed. 73. Yes, 73. 74. Alright, I'm gonna do some tests with some more coasters, and I'll let y'all know if any of them seem to be weird anomalies. Like any sane person, I have built systematically every single coaster track so that I can know if any of them have any different speeds. And as an engineer, I'm greatly disappointed because for the majority they are all the same speed, meaning they have the same potential energy, meaning they all have the same mass, which I think is kind of ridiculous. However, there were a few exceptions. This coaster right here, it only gets up to 71 miles per hour. The Viper 1 gets up to 76 miles per hour. These are our two outliers. Perhaps this Looney Tunes coaster just has high friction and this Viper 1 has lower friction. Other than that, there are a couple of notable coasters. This boy, the Cloud Runner, has these linear synchronous motors. There are a couple over here, including this Formula car looking coaster that have hydraulic launch systems. If we have kinetic energy and potential energy, that'll increase our overall energy, which then can be converted into acceleration and g-force at the bottom of the track. So I decided to test the two methods against each other. Which would be faster, a hydraulic launch or a linear synchronous motor? We're gonna have it facing down this way. I have a couple track lengths of 20 meters, and then we're gonna have a coaster with one of the hydraulic launches. This one's gonna have to have track length of 20 meters as well. We're gonna see which coaster is faster by the end. Alright, the top one seems to consistently be staying at 60, whereas this bottom one is hitting 67. Okay, I now knew which acceleration method was the fastest, but would it prove to be faster than my fastest downhill coaster? So we're gonna take the sprint. Alright, start the test. Can we get above 76 miles per hour at the end? 98. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have the first step of our engineering process finished. I know that I could have faster coasters by removing friction, and I know that there are ways to do that in this game, but I'm not going to because that's not how it works in real life. That brings me to a couple of self-imposed rules for this challenge. Fortunately, since we know that g-force is acceleration, we can use kinematic equations to model a system and maximize g-force. Velocity is a key component in calculating acceleration, and we can get that from kinetic energy. Due to the law of conservation of energy, the kinetic energy at the bottom of the drop equals the potential plus kinetic energy at the top. We have the height, gravity, and we can measure the speed, so what we need to solve for to create a working predictive kinematic model is the mass, and we can do this by setting up a simple experiment. We're going to see how high it gets, and then we're going to see what its speed coming back to the bottom is. So we're going to have to be kind of precise about this. We're going to go from the front of the car to the front of the car. Right here. Looks to be almost exactly halfway between 35 and 67. About 51 minus 9. H equals 42. Alright, now we're going to do some pausing and playing here. It needs to come back down. It was converted all into kinetic energy right here. Except it went back up some. Oh, okay. I see what's going to happen here. We're going to have to redo this test. Now, the reason we need to redo this test is because the mass of the coaster isn't centered over the low point on the track. This means there's still some potential energy in play, and we want that converted all to kinetic energy. Actually, I think we have to measure from basically the middle. Alright, so the exact middle, almost exactly a quarter of the way up. So the height is 34 meters. Now, when we come back down, minus 59 miles per hour, and then we take these numbers, do some algebra magic, and get a result for mass. We did something wrong here. Yeah, so I'm editing this right now, and I messed up more than just a little. I did the algebra all wrong. You can't divide off of mass when it's equal to 0. Mass shouldn't even be solvable in this equation in the first place. It should cancel out. But we will need the mass value for a later calculation of acceleration and momentum. And so what what I was actually thinking is another engineering method just called looking them up. This car is based off of the Formula Rossa. The Formula Rossa has 4 seats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if this one has 5, that one had 4. This is gonna weigh about 5,000 kilograms. Let's get started on our actual track for the attempt to beat the record. Alright, 995 meters is pretty good. we're gonna need to have a few sections of this track with the hydraulic launch. Now we can just go with the standard track, and we're just gonna send it straight down to the bottom. Also, I don't really want any track supports. I'm a computer engineer, not a structural engineer. This goes from minus 120 the whole way up to 1,000. $322. Why do I feel like that's not amazing? This is a track segment that is 4 meters in length, and what we're gonna do is gonna rotate this one. We're gonna try creating a... Can you go up more, please? Why can you not? Why is it not letting me go up? I just want to make a loop. Can this not invert? It cannot invert. Oh my goodness. So I did all this testing only to find out that this one cannot invert. And what this does is this sets us back a little bit because we're not going to be able to get the G's that we need with a coaster that cannot invert. Let's see. Which of these other ones have hydraulic launching, and can any of them invert? That one has hydraulic launch, but it cannot invert. So that's rather unfortunate. We're gonna try the drive tire lift as well. See if that makes any difference versus the linear synchronous motor. Alright, so this one goes 60. The F25 and the Cloud Runner 2 both go 60 off rip. But we're gonna start with the Cloud Runner 2 and see where that gets us. There are essentially two schools of thought for how to go about creating G-force. One is that we could do it on the way down with spirals coming down the track, and another is to have the spirals at the end of the track. Why is this saying this is an invalid? This is clearly a valid. Is there a reason that this is not a valid setup? Maybe I need to make all of these turns slightly bigger. No. Oh, we can do this. I think it would be because the track width is such that the car would collide with this other portion of track. So what we're gonna have to do here is we're gonna have to delete this, and we're gonna have to use the last coaster. Alright, I guess we have to go with a 45-degree loop, and we will see what type of G's this collects, and then we're gonna compare it to a larger loop and see if they differ at all. So this is 260 G's. Now, we're going to stop this and we're going to put a 10 meter and then a 20 meter radius loop on and see what happens. Alright, let's see if this one gets more than 260. This one only got 93. So this proves the point that the tighter radius turns seem to be better. And actually, if we put the car on the outside of the track, we might be able to get tighter turns as well. So let's try that first. Let's start this test. This is the smallest loop possible. Let's see what type of G-force we can get on here. 284. Alright, I went ahead and made some more loops on here so that we can see if we can get higher G-force from repeated ones. Theoretically, it should just be sustained G-force, but the way that this game measures it, it probably doesn't measure G-force instantaneously, but rather accumulates over time. Somehow, like briefly over time, they probably use delta t instead of a derivative. So I'm guessing that this might give us a more accurate reading of the G-force which we're actually getting around one of these bends. Yeah, if you noticed, we had about 430 G's. Now, the reason that G-force shouldn't increase with added loops goes back to the idea of conservation of energy. Since the car isn't falling any longer, it isn't speeding up, and angular acceleration is a change in angle over time. If the car isn't moving as fast, it's going to take longer time, and the acceleration will actually be lower, not higher. The first one would be the highest, so I'm not really sure what this game is doing. So now I knew that this game didn't exactly have the most accurate results, but I knew that if I could calculate my theoretical G-force at this loop, I could change variables that I needed to until I got the world record. Unfortunately, I was tired and my brain wasn't functioning, so I took a break to give myself some time. Okay, I figured out what it was. I figured out what the secret sauce that we were missing was, and it all comes down to the idea of centripetal acceleration. And that's the idea that whenever you have like a circle, you're always going to have a force that's pulling you towards the middle because you're changing your direction. How you calculate this with centripetal acceleration, if you just go right here, equals v squared over r. This is why you get more G-force out of a smaller circle. 489 G's. Let's create a few more loops of this so that hopefully the calculations can catch up and see if that's about what we're getting. All right, now here we have a few more, so all I'm gonna do, start the test. We're gonna pop on the ride camera and see what happens. So here it comes. So it got up to 600 and then dropped back down to 500. I don't know how it got to 600 Gs if I'm being completely honest with you. The math says that it shouldn't be getting to 600 Gs. Well, you know, the real smart way that we can check this is we can go ahead and autocomplete. Start the test. Oh, there we go. Max speed is 316. Max vertical G-force is 641. If we add that with the max forward G-force, that gets us over the 900. Yeah, I'm not quite sure that that's what was intended in the world record. Still, 641's not bad. Let's see how we can make it better. There's one other possible method which I can think of, and that is to make the spirals be coming down. Now, theoretically, that shouldn't make any difference. The highest G-force spot should be right here in this first spiral. Hit the autocomplete. Now we're gonna start the test. Let's look at the G's. I'm kind of at a loss for anything else to do other than possibly changing the radius of this by putting the tracks on the inside. I think we're gonna try it. One last attempt to look at this other coaster. Before we get to this final coaster, there's one little piece of inspiration from real life that we can talk about as a prototype of engineering that should never be carried out, and that's the idea of this euthanasia coaster, a hypothetical steel roller coaster that was designed in 2010 of carrying out the penalty for victims that have received the death penalty in court. The idea is that it would sustain about 10 Gs to the human for 60 seconds. The idea was that it would be a more humane way for that punishment. Now, I'm gonna make a rough sketch of what this would look like. So it would go around 500 meters tall, and it would funnel into a series of 7 loops, each one being subsequently smaller than the last to maintain the Gs. And from there, it's just a simple matter of taking it back to the station. So let's start the test on here and see exactly how this coaster would work. Should theoretically reach about 220. Yeah, there we go. Let's look at the results. So it would have at least 10 Gs if we were gonna ride it. This is about what you would experience. I mean, technically you wouldn't experience that the second half, but you get the idea. Now it's time for the final test to see if we can get any more Gs out of these roller coasters. And we're gonna start the test. Let's look at the Gs. It only got up to about 444. By engineering calculations, it's not possible. So unless we figure out how to squeeze more miles per hour, I'm not entirely sure how to get these numbers.